Okay, guys, everybody is saying it, including myself. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is the best Spider-Man movie, and so far, the best film of 2023. It somehow surpasses the first film to become even more of an animated masterpiece, because this movie is like a comic book come to life. It's just so beautiful to watch, not only for the story and character perspective, but just like visually, it's beautiful. Like the artistic style, it's awesome. It's really, really cool. And so we're going to talk about it because, that's kind of what we do here. But if you haven't seen the movie yet, you're going to want to go check out my other video, my non-spoiler review, because this right here, this is my spoiler review. So there's full spoilers here, so full spoiler warning if you've not yet seen Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. So let's get into this and break down the best Spider-Man movie of all time, until probably Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse comes out next March, which is really exciting because, usually you get like a two-part film and, you have to wait like at least a year, if not like 2 to 5 years in between the two parts. But this, we got like less than a year to find out what happens next from Miles and our Spider Crew. So that's definitely really exciting. But guys, I'm wasting no time. Like, the first thing I want to talk about here is the insane cameos and references in this film, because this is like the craziest thing about it, because obviously it's a multiverse movie, so it kind of lends towards that being a thing. And there being a lot of opportunity for that, but there is so much here, like to the point of where this is just a full-on love letter to Spider-Man and Spider-Man fans, because there are references for every type of Spider-Man fan out there, whether you grew up on the 60s cartoon, or the Spectacular Spider-Man, or playing the PS4 video game, or, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, whatever it may be. There's something in here for you. Like, it's to the point of where I'm almost upset I couldn't just pause it in the movie theater just to analyze every single little scene, because there's so many things going on in the background that there's probably stuff I even missed that I'm so excited for, like, when it comes out on Blu-ray and I can pause it and do all that stuff, because that's going to be so fun to see what else is hiding beneath this film. But the big one, the big cameo in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is Donald Glover as a live-action Aaron Davis, aka the Prowler, which is insanely awesome. Now, this one, it was spoiled for me the morning of me watching this movie. I was like really upset about it because I just woke up that morning. I was like getting ready to leave and go see the movie within like a couple hours from then. Woke up, got on my phone, just took out YouTube just to look at my subscriptions, and it was in somebody's thumbnail. It was a YouTube short, so it wasn't like supposed to be in the thumbnail, but it was kind of just there. But anyway, it was spoiled for me, but that didn't matter because it was still an amazing moment, because Donald Glover as a live-action Prowler is something I have been waiting for years to see, because of course Donald Glover played Aaron Davis in 2017 Spider-Man Homecoming. So there was always the potential and the possibility for him to play the Prowler in the MCU. Now, it's not confirmed here whether this is the same exact version. We do not know for sure, but I'm just going to assume it is. So this is our one big MCU cameo for the film, is Donald Glover as MCU Aaron Davis, aka Prowler. But there's so many more deeper layers and connections behind Donald Glover specifically. Because yes, obviously he has that one big connection to Aaron Davis and the Prowler in the MCU, but he goes back and has the biggest connection ever to Miles Morales as a character himself. Because in case you guys didn't know, Miles Morales as a character in the comics was actually created and inspired by Donald Glover. Because originally Donald Glover, he was on Community, and there was an episode where he wore a Spider-Man suit, and he in real life started campaigning about how he wanted to play Spider-Man in live action. This was around the time when they were casting for The Amazing Spider-Man. They ended up obviously going instead with Andrew Garfield, which Andrew Garfield, Amazing Spider-Man, he's my favorite live action Spider-Man. But just think how crazy it would have been if we got a black Peter Parker with Donald Glover. That would have been absolutely insane. But because they cast Andrew Garfield, and there was some backlash behind that, Brian Michael Bendis was like, you know what, in the comics we're just going to introduce a new character who is going to be black, and he's going to be Spider-Man. And that was Miles Morales. So Miles Morales as a character was inspired by Donald Glover. And in fact, the first time that Miles Morales ever appeared in animation was in Ultimate Spider-Man, and he was voiced by Donald Glover. You also bring in the fact that in the first Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse movie, in the scene where Uncle Aaron is in his apartment, on his TV, you have playing that scene of Donald Glover wearing the Spider-Man shirt from Community. So there's just so many layers to this cameo, which makes it so awesome and so cool and gets me so excited and hopeful that we may see, hopefully, Donald Glover as Prowler in live action again in the future. Because, I mean, especially since Miles Morales is supposedly coming to live action, if that's going to be in the MCU, we have Donald Glover as our MCU Prowler. So I really, really do hope that ends up becoming a thing. But we do have another live-action cameo in this film, of course, with Mrs. Chen from the Venom movies. That was pretty cool. We already knew about that going into this. We already, I did a video breaking that down actually a couple weeks ago because we got our first look at that. So that was cool to see. J.K. Simmons was here as J. Jonah Jameson, not in live action, but instead in animation. But I love how he voiced J. Jonah Jameson in every single universe. That was insanely awesome. In, I think it was maybe Gwen's universe, where he had like the same exact design he has in the MCU, just, animated. He also voiced, of course, Lego JJJ as well. So that was cool to see. But speaking of the MCU, we don't get any other MCU cameos, but we do get an MCU reference when Miles' roommate, Genki, I don't remember how it's pronounced, but of course he's Miles' best friend in the comics. He knows that Miles is Spider-Man, and we get a reference where he's talking about how he doesn't want to be the guy in the chair, which, of course, that is a reference to Ned Leeds in the MCU, Peter Parker's best friend. He's the guy in the chair. Now, the reason this is so funny is because Ned Leeds in the MCU is actually based on the character of Genki from the comics, and literally the only thing in the MCU that makes Ned Leeds is just the name. He's literally Genki, just with the Ned Leeds name. So that was a really cool reference I really enjoyed. Now, probably my favorite cameo besides Donald Glover as Prowler was the Spectacular Spider-Man. This is my favorite Spider-Man cartoon. I grew up on this show. I love this show. I rewatch it like every year. It's just such a good Spider-Man show. If you guys haven't watched it, you really should, because it's amazing. And so Josh Keaton appears here as Spectacular Spider-Man. He only has the one line, but it was just so cool nonetheless to see him reprise that role as that character. It's just so sucky what happened to that show, how it was canceled just because Disney wanted a new Spider-Man show for Disney XD. But it was such a great cameo. I loved it. And maybe he'll return in Beyond the Spider-Verse. Now, we do get live-action cameos from Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, but it is just footage from their previous films. It's just shown to represent the, the losses and the canon events, which we'll talk about later. So that was cool to see. We do also get to hear Alfred Molina's voice, at least, saying the "Hello, Peter," which I'm assuming is the same clip from No Way Home. Just they use that here. So that was cool to see. And we just get a bunch of great Spider-Verse characters and cameos. Like, we get Spider-Man as a T-Rex, we get a Spider-Cat, we get the whole Lego universe. That was really fun to see, which apparently that whole Lego animated sequence was animated by a 14-year-old, so that's even more impressive. We got Web Slinger, of course, the Spider-Man cowboy. I love how the horse also had the mask. The PS4 video game Insomniac version of Spider-Man. We get some great villain cameos as well, like Rhino. Armadillo is in there. Like I said, Dr. Octopus, there's a shot of Electro, there's a Kraven the Hunter. I also love that we had not one, but two Mysterios, one of which being Moose-Stereo, the Moose version of Mysterio, so that was hilarious as well. So that was great to see. Now, speaking of villains, though, the main villain of this movie wasn't really the main villain of this movie. So we have the Spot, a.k.a. Dr. Jonathan On. Now, the Spot was... I remember when they first announced he was going to be the villain of this movie, and I was so confused but excited at the same time, because the Spot he was always just like, one of those classic obscure Spider-Man villains that is just so ridiculous. It's like how Batman has some of those ridiculous villains like the Eraser and Polka Dot Man. Yeah, the Spot is the Polka Dot Man of the Spider-Man universe. But somehow he is the main villain of the best Spider-Man movie of all time, which is absolutely insane because they took this character and just took him to a whole nother level. I thought this guy, even though he had, kind of a small role in the movie, he was mostly only in the beginning, but he was funny. I loved his origin story, his connection to the first movie. He was the guy that got hit with the bagel. Also, great connection for how this all has to do with the bagel. And there was also reference to Everything Everywhere All at Once on a billboard. So, the bagel is at the center of the universe. So great reference to that movie as well. But yeah, the whole thing of that with Dr. Jonathan On being the one that brought this spider to this universe. He's basically the reason Miles became Spider-Man. Miles is the reason that On became the Spot, and so he sees himself as Miles' arch enemy and all this stuff. That was great. And just his power up as him going to every universe and just absorbing more and more energy to basically become a black hole. That was great to see, and I can't wait to see more of him in Beyond the Spider-Verse because, like I said, he was funny but also terrifying at the same time, and it's just crazy how they took such an obscure, silly, ridiculous villain and made him so cool in this film. Now, as for our heroes, one of the, bigger characters in this film, who I would honestly consider co-lead, is Gwen Stacy. You start off the movie with her, and you end off the movie with her. A lot of people are complaining about the cliffhanger and how it doesn't feel like a full movie. Maybe not a full movie for Miles Morales, but this is a full movie for Gwen Stacy because, again, she starts at the beginning and she is at the end. She gets the full arc where at the beginning she's lost, she's looking for a band. At the end of the movie, she finds that band. You have that whole arc with her father, which I thought was beautiful. I really hated her father at the beginning though, especially when she reveals to him that she's Spider-Woman and he literally whips out the gun on her and is like, I'm gonna arrest you still. That was ridiculous. But I'm glad that they made up by the end. So yeah, I really enjoyed her arc in this film, and I'm excited to see more of her in Beyond the Spider-Verse, of course. Miles, great. Love seeing everything with his father. I'm going to go more into depth with that, with the whole multiverse rules and canon and all that. Peter B, love seeing him as a father. Also, there's just this great ongoing theme throughout this film with fathers specifically. Gwen and her father, Miles and his father, Peter B being a father. So that was great to see, just him back in action. He got the happy ending with Mary Jane, and now he has the daughter with Mayday. That was great. Spider-Man India was a really big surprise to me. We spent quite a bit of time in his universe, and the whole animation style was really awesome. I love what was done with his character, how he was shown as, a really happy, enthusiastic Spider-Man, and, everything in his life was great, and that was because he didn't suffer the canon event. That was so cool to see, and I would love to see what a version of that character would be like if and after he did suffer that event. How that would change him. Spider-Punk, another one of my favorites. Danny Kaluuya was great. I love how we got a black British Spider-Man going on here with the full-on, spiky mohawk, and he's shredding on the guitar. That was great to see. I love also how he was kind of more of an anti-hero. He was really fighting against society and all that. Also, the almost love triangle between him, Gwen, and Miles. That was great to see. Just a really fun inclusion here. As well as also Scarlet Spider, Ben Reilly, even though he had a small role. Andy Samberg doing the voice. It was very much kind of making fun of that character from the 90s comics because he was so dark and serious and brooding. They really made that into a joke here, but I loved it. So that was really fun. Spider-Woman, I didn't love her because she was kind of just really not nice in this movie at all. But it was cool seeing a badass pregnant woman in action. So that was nice. And then that, of course, brings us to Spider-Man 2099, Miguel O'Hara. I loved his backstory. I theorized about this in my trailer breakdowns, where he's got the whole thing of he always wanted a family. He found this universe where Miguel O'Hara died, so he went here to replace that Miguel and have a daughter and have a family and everything. But then that, that messed things up. That disrupted a canon event and basically deleted the universe. So he's a really rough, dark character, but I really enjoyed how he was used here as the antagonist. I'm hoping that in Beyond the Spider-Verse, he will, of course, most likely continue that antagonist role, but I'm hoping he can eventually turn to the heroic side towards the end, at least join Miles by the end, because the comics, Spider-Man 2099 is still a hero. Like, he is definitely more darker and brooding, but he's always been a hero, and he's always been one of my favorite Spider-Verse variants, so I'm hoping he will become a better guy in the sequel. But now let's talk about that multiverse logic, because I loved seeing the web of life and destiny, this whole explanation of canon events and anomalies, and there was just so many cool terms thrown around here that it really makes me wish that the MCU, with their whole multiverse saga and everything, that they had the same rules that they did here, because they are so much less confusing and so much clearer. And it really makes me wish also that, they don't have a director for Avengers Secret Wars yet. Why not just hire Phil Lord and Chris Miller, or the directors of this movie? Just like the people that worked on this, the writers, get them to do Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, because I would feel so much better about that. But it's just so well constructed and organized here. Like I said, I love the use of this whole canon events thing, because it makes so much sense for the Spider-Man character, because that is such a core aspect of Spider-Man or Spider-Woman, whatever spider character you are. You have to suffer that loss, whether that is an Uncle Ben or a Captain Stacy or a Peter Parker. And that was great to see, just like all of these spiders reflecting on that loss, and then Miles finding out that his father is going to die in 2 days and he can't do anything about it, but he's not just going to sit by and let his father die. And that, again, is another thing I theorized about in one of my trailer breakdowns, and I think that's really beautiful, because that's part of what being a hero is you want to save everybody, but you can't always do that. So I'm really interested in particular to see in Beyond the Spider-Verse how that's going to end up concluding. Like, will Miles be able to get what he wants? Will he be able to save everybody? Will he be able to save his dad? Or will he have to suffer that loss? Will he lose his father just like he did Uncle Aaron? And that's going to really suck. But again, it's part of the Spider-Man character. If it's a canon event, then it has to happen. But then you also factor in the part of this being that Miles is the original anomaly, and that he was never supposed to become Spider-Man, because that spider that bit him was from a different universe, and now there's no Spider-Man in that universe. And so that whole crazy thing. So then when Miles tries to go back home, it detects the DNA from Earth 42, so he gets sent to Earth 42. We'll talk about that in a second, but first I want to talk about Gwen's ending. Like I said, she meets up with this new band at the end, and I love how going into this third movie, we bring together the group from the first movie and the second movie. So you have from Across the Spider-Verse, you have Spider-Punk, you have Spider-Man India, you have Spider-Bite, but you also have returning Penny Parker, who was the only one from the first movie to actually have speaking lines here, but you also have Spider-Man Noir coming back, as well as Spider-Ham, and of course Peter B. Parker in there as well. So I love that. That's a great group. I'm really excited to see all of them return and team up as one Spider-Force together for Beyond the Spider-Verse. But now Miles is all on his own on Earth 42. Where in this universe, not only is his father dead, not only is Uncle Aaron alive, but Miles Morales in this universe is not Spider-Man. There is no Spider-Man in this universe. Miles Morales is the Prowler, which is so exciting to see, because it's something that makes so much sense. It's not just a thing to be like, oh, what if Miles was a bad guy? It's specifically, what if he was the Prowler? Because Miles always had that closer connection, that closer relationship with his uncle as it was. So to see what if he actually did follow in his uncle's footsteps and went down that path is so interesting, and I'm so excited to see that. That's going to be really, really interesting and exciting to see explored in the sequel. And also, another little mention that might be explored in the sequel as well, in the beginning of the scene, J. Jonah Jameson on the TV screen mentions something about the Sinister Six cartel, which could possibly be seeing a version of the Sinister Six in Beyond the Spider-Verse as well. There are references and Easter eggs to different Spider-Man villains within this world of Earth 42. Like there's the Electrophone, Vulture Corp, the Sandman Rolex, Scorpo, Rhino Casino, and Oct 8. So that could possibly be giving us our Sinister Six lineup for Beyond the Spider-Verse. That's going to be really exciting. Like, there's so much that's going to be going down in Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse with the Sinister Six, with the Spot, Miles versus Prowler Miles, and the new Spider Crew, plus Spider-Man 2099. There's going to be so much going on in this movie. This better be like a 3-hour movie. But I'm so excited for it because Across the Spider-Verse was amazing again. It's my favorite Spider-Man movie, my new favorite Spider-Man movie. Now after Into the Spider-Verse, and I guarantee that when Beyond the Spider-Verse comes out next March, that's probably going to take the number one spot right away from Across the Spider-Verse. But guys, this movie was amazing. I loved it. I hope you guys did as well. Of course, let me know your own spoiler-filled thoughts in the comments below. What did you think about the movie? What were your favorite cameos? What were your favorite references, Easter eggs? And where do you think we're going to go in next year's Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse? So, thanks so much for watching. Please drop a like if you enjoyed this video and hit the subscribe button so I can keep you up to date on everything goes on in the Marvel life.